Okay, so thanks for joining everyone. It's Everyday Watch Guy here, and this evening I'm joined by Jason, who's the owner and CEO of Zenea Watches. So, Jason, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for the invite, Torrin. So always a pleasure to chat with you and just chat with the community in general. So very excited to be here.
Great. So typically, before we get into any conversations, I like to ask people for a quick wristwatch check. So, are you wearing anything this evening?
I was. Somebody caught me at home last day and I wasn't wearing one. So I made sure to put on my watch today, but I was wearing it all day. So today I'm wearing the Zenea Ula Diver and of course, in the Meteor Dial, the time and space meteorite. So just trying to get the light not reflecting off of it.
Yeah.
So this is probably my favorite watch out of the line of the Ula Divers. So it's the one I wear the most by far. So.
Yeah, that's great, and that's something I'll probably go into in a bit, just in terms of the different options that you have for the Ula Diver, because I'm really impressed with all the different colorways. And the Meteor Dial is, yeah, definitely pops.
So. Yeah, the Meteor Dial is by far the most popular out of all the models that we've put out. So.
Yeah, and today on the wrist, I actually got this watch today. It's my latest acquisition. Nice. This is a German Flieger. It's an Archimedes pilot watch.
Very cool.
Yeah,
you gotta love the Fliegers. Those are cool.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I've had a number of Fliegers. I've had like some stuff from Laco, Stova, Zin, Damasco, but Archimedes is a nice micro brand, and there was actually another watch enthusiast on one of the Canada forums that had it for sale, so
yeah,
I was happy to pick it up.
That's good. I remember seeing I think it was Micro FX, one of the shows, and one of the reps from Hamilton was there. I guess they come out with a Flieger, but it was like the original large size that they used in some of the pilot ones, and it's like, I can't remember the size.
Yeah.
It's like 65.
It's probably like 55 millimeters or something.
No, it was bigger than that. It was huge. It was like a saucer plate. It was so big. So
right.
It was pretty wild, but they only make a small number per year. So I thought that was a pretty interesting piece. So.
Yeah, that would be an interesting piece to see. I think they like kind of strapped it to their thigh or something, right? Like
I think so. Yeah, it was it had to do with like how they're geared up and with the heavy jackets and heavy gear that they would wear. And just so they could access it. So I thought it was pretty interesting that they still made those in small batches occasionally for collectors. So
awesome. So before we get into, like, I know there's a really cool campaign that you're going to be putting out for charity this coming Canada Day. But before we do that, for people that aren't aware, can maybe just give a little bit of background information on your brand Zenea? And kind of like some of the design elements and what it means to be Canadian, but also having a Swiss-made watch come out in the process.
Yeah, happy to. I've been a watch enthusiast and collector for about 15 years. I probably have about maybe 60 watches in my personal collection, everywhere, everything from $10, $15 thrift store finds upwards to much nicer pieces that I picked up at ADs and secondhand and through other dealers. And I've just always enjoyed timekeeping and horology and watches. I started looking into doing my own brand a few years ago. I started doing some research and eventually wound up deciding to create my own brand, but through the Swiss factory partner, which we've aligned ourselves with. And it's been an incredible journey. It's certainly not an easy one. The watch world is a very competitive, like most businesses, it's a very competitive landscape. You're competing against a lot of well-known heritage brands, but I really wanted to create something that was exceptional from a timepiece standpoint, and that was kind of elements of the Canadian nature within it as well. So wound up with the Ula Diver dive watches. I mean, they're a very popular style. They're one of my favorite styles of watches. They're very versatile. The watch itself, I'm very, very pleased with the way it turned out. There's a couple of tips of the hat to the Canadian origin of the brand. The second, I'll show you not much you can see it on the screen here, but the second hand is actually the same in red. It's the same Pantone color as the Canadian flag, as well as the 5-minute chapter ring markers. And also the outer box of the packaging is also the same Pantone color as Canadian flag. So, and then little elements as well. There's a artistic case back as well that's done by a Canadian artist who's a friend of mine who I grew up with in Vancouver, and he's a graphic artist and teacher right now. So I got him to help me put together the design for that. So lots of little bits of Canadian background in there as well. So.
Yeah, that's really great. And I'll just try and bring up the maybe the webpage so it's easier for people to check it out. I don't know if it's
great. We'll see how it goes here. The joys of going live, right?
So. Yeah, I don't know. Can you see it now? Is it? I'm scrolling through.
I can't see it on my screen, so.
Okay, let's do the share.
There we go.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, this appears to be. Some of the design elements you're talking about, right? In terms of the
Absolutely.
red tip seconds hand. Yeah, and I really like the pop of red along the chaptering there.
Yeah, I think it adds a nice little touch to it. And from a brand standpoint, the aesthetic, what appeals to me when I have a watch is I always like a watch to be very clean, not overly busy. The dials, I like to be very functional and easy to read. So that was certainly part of the design aesthetic when I was going through and putting together the elements of the watch itself as I was building it out and creating the design. So.
Yeah, and this should be the watch on your wrist, right? The Meteor Dial here?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So it's actually made from a slice of the Lusta. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. Meteorite fell in northern Sweden area about 1 million years ago. The meteorite material itself is actually quite interesting. They've dated the meteorite material itself to be over 4.5 billion years old, which is actually older than the Earth itself. So it's really a very amazing piece of history that you have on your wrist when you're wearing this watch. And I think people love the story. It looks nice. One of the things I found when I was researching and trying to put together the meteorite dial specifically was often you see a lot of the watches with meteorite dials, they're quite gray or they're a little bland. The way they did the finishing with this particular slice of meteorite, it gives a lot more sheen to it. It's a bit brighter than you typically see with some of the other meteorite dials that are out there. So I quite like that aspect of it. And I know I've had quite a few watch collectors comment or speak about that element of the watch as well.
Yeah, it's definitely got a nice texture to it. It's not too muted, like you said. And so I have the specs up here. I don't know if you want to speak to it, but like some of the specs I really liked. And for those of you who just joined or in the chat, I reviewed this, the Ula Diver, I think it was around this time last year. I'm not too sure.
I think so. It's when the prototypes were out.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if we had actually released it at that point, the production model. So, because you were one of the first reviewers to review it, I recall.
Yeah. And some of the things I really appreciated about just the design, I mean, aside from the Canadian elements, is the ceramic bezel insert and the bezel action is really crisp. It's really good. And I found the loom was really cool too because it's a bi-color application of loom. If I'm remembering it correctly, Kurt.
It was, yeah, it's right? BGW9 loom. So I believe the prototypes they actually used slightly different variations of loom. So it actually looks almost biluminal, but in the actual production models, it's all one contiguous color of the loom, which was intentional. So the one difference with the production models is actually the hands. You can see it in the photos here, but the hands are actually heat blued hands. So it's a little different than just like the standard kind of blue hands. So I was very pleased with how it's turned out, and feedback has been very, very positive from owners and people who have held the watch in hand for the most part, which makes me very happy.
That's great. Yeah, it's a nice touch. And in terms of our specs, I think so 41 millimeter case diameter, correct? So
correct.
It's a great size. It fits, I would say, most wrist sizes quite well. Very nice bracelet, micro adjustment. So you're using a Swiss ETA 2824, which is
that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
And the watch, it's not on the website, but the watch is actually, when it's produced, is actually regulated to 4 positions before assembly, and it's all put together in our Swiss factory and QC'd and whatnot. So a lot of the factory that we work with is a very established factory. They work with a lot of the very top-end heritage brands in Switzerland as well, so they've got lots of experience. So we've been pretty happy with them overall. They've done a pretty great job, so we're very, very pleased with that. And particularly for me personally too, when I have a watch, I put a lot of thought also into the bracelet and the clasp with this particular watch. I find often with watches, that's an area that's kind of shorted a little bit. It's not always much effort is put into the finishing with the bracelet. And to me, that's something that should also get just as much attention as the dial or the case body, because really the bracelet is what sits on your wrist, and that's most of the time what you're feeling throughout the day. So, having a well-constructed bracelet and well-finished bracelet is also very important to me.
Yeah, agreed. I remember the production models had the tolerances on the bracelet were very good. I liked that it had screw links, I think, on both sides. It was a very secure way of sizing the links. And even things like this, I think it's just like an oil press case back, but the case back is very intricate. It's quite nice.
They did a good job on it, and that's those are heraldic dolphins, which you see them a lot in architecture from hundreds of years ago. You see them in a lot of medieval maps, and you see it's any sort of ocean faring community. You tend to see this heraldic dolphin as a symbol that's often in the architecture, the maps, the literature around the area. So the heraldic dolphins are going in a concentric circle, basically never-ending circle around the Zenea hourglass logo, representing the continuity of time. So that was the principle behind that case back design.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
So maybe I'll just quickly jump into the chat and see who's joining us tonight. So
Sure.
We got Ride Paddle Repeat. Thanks for joining. That's my twin brother. He has his own YouTube channel. So
very good.
Thanks for joining, Darren. Kevin Wagner is joining us. Great guy. He's on the West Coast in Canada.
Nice. I come from Vancouver originally, so.
Okay. So he's asking, can Canadians buy your watch in Canadian dollars?
Yeah.
I hear that question a lot. So maybe you can answer that.
Yeah, the default currency I put is in US dollars, but there's a selector. It's depending on your browsers, either the very top of the website or the bottom. Usually it's on the top. And you can select whatever local currency you want, including Canadian currency. And then when you purchase it through, it'll get billed through on your credit card or whatever payment method you use, and it'll be billed in Canadian dollars. So.
Okay, that's great. And does it ship from Canada or does it ship from Switzerland?
Ships from Canada.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Junior Johnson joins us. Thanks for taking the time this evening. Hope you're doing well.
I know Juves.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, that's a very personal message. Good job.
Juves is part of the Zenea team, and she helps with some of the business development and the distribution agreements that we're working on with the brand. So she's been very, very helpful and has put me in touch with a lot of different folks that have helped me to craft and build the website and do some of the background things with the brand, and things are going well. So welcome, Juves. Thanks for joining.
And we had a comment from Junior Johnson. He mentioned he's driving, so I guess it might be a little difficult for him to hear, but he does plan on making a donation to your campaign, which we'll probably talk about.
I mean, we'll talk more about that, and that campaign, the Zenea Time Traveler, that's really what it's about, is having a very, very successful fundraiser. And me personally, I'm extremely excited to launch the campaign on July 1st. And we've got a lot of people lined up already. And I know yourself, Torrin, have also agreed to participate. So not only members from the watch community, but just everyday Canadians, business people. We're in active discussions with a couple of kind of notable celebrity types, trying to get some assistance from them as well to help spread the word. So we're very, very excited about it. And I think it's going to be a very exciting campaign over the course of the year. So Junior Johnson, thank you for that support on that campaign. It's going to mean a lot to us and a lot to Habitat for Humanity, which is our charitable cause we're supporting. So more about that in a little bit, I think. So,
yeah, for sure. And maybe just closing out the chat, Young Excellency joined us from Atlanta, Canada.
Welcome. Thanks. Coast to coast, huh?
Yeah.
That's good.
It's great to see you.
Yeah.
Love the support.
Yeah, the campaign, when it gets started, the watch is, well, do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, no, let's transition into it. Let's talk about it. So maybe just can you just talk about like what's the name of the campaign, when's it starting up, and how can people get involved?
Sure. The name of the campaign is it's Zenea Time Traveler. We've got a separate Instagram account by that name, so Zenea Time Traveler. So take a look up, and if you don't already follow, please do give that a follow as well, because that's going to be the best source where you're going to be able to see people's posts, people's engagement with the watches, and the adventures of the watch over the course of the year. So basically, it is a traveling watch that's going to be traveling. It's actually this watch that I'm holding in my hand. and it's going to be traveling across Canada from person to person. As I mentioned, it's going to members of the watch community. It's going to everyday Canadians. It's going to some notable personalities as well. And it's going to be visiting hopefully every province and every territory at least once during the course of the year-long campaign. It's to raise funds for Habitat for Humanity Canada, which most people know the charity, but it's a really fantastic charity that helps families who are either disadvantaged or often the newcomers to Canada, or just people who are having a challenging time getting safe and affordable housing for themselves. And they help to build homes through a lot of volunteer work and donations and other supports all across Canada. There are 50 different, they call them habitats, or basically chapters across Canada that do this great work for people. So we are going to be giving 100% of the funds raised to Habitat for Humanity Canada. And it's going to be split equally among all 50 habitats that they're involved with. So they were very excited to hear about our fundraising efforts and what we're doing. And I think it's just going to be a lot of fun to follow the adventures of this watch. Over the course of the year, it is going to see so many amazing things. We've already got people lined up, and they're telling me some of the ideas of what they want to do with the watch. And I'm envious of it. I think it's going to be a fantastic trip over the course of the year. And it's a year-long event. So it's going to be very, very exciting as the campaign grows and as the adventures of the watch continue.
Yeah, that's great. And just so people in the chat, or if you're going to play this back later, are aware, I actually put a link to the Zenea Time Traveler website in the description of this video. And also I put a link to where you can donate for Habitat for Humanity. Can you maybe just speak on that, what the website for where the donations are?
Yeah, I'll send you the link to that. It's in the proposal document, which I sent you earlier. There's actually a link to it. So I've got a shortened one, but it's kind of a hodgepodge of letters and numbers. So I can't tell you what it is off the top of my head right now. But if you can include it into the link in the description, there's a dedicated Zenea Watches fundraiser page so we can keep track of the donations. And it's all done through CanadaHelps.org, which is a third-party charitable fundraiser platform. And 100% of the funds go directly to Habitat for Humanity Canada. So Zenea doesn't have any access to the funds or anything along those lines. We're just strictly promoting and creating, hopefully, a donation stream that's going to help out the Habitat for Humanity Canada. I mean, that's their end goal.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic organization, and I think it's quite timely too, because I know housing prices are getting kind of crazy, like in Ontario, but probably in all of North America.
In many parts in the country, and it's a real challenge for families. And having that stable home environment is, I think, so core to people being able to build and grow for themselves and their families. And they do a lot of great work. And the part of the aspect that really appeals to me in terms of that charity, we were looking for a good charitable group that we could work with that was national in scope, but also was very much related to our own brand philosophy, which is appreciate every moment. Appreciate every moment doesn't just reference, appreciating the finer elements of a beautiful timepiece, but appreciating the things that we have in our lives, right? Our connection with loved ones, our friends, amazing experiences, so many things out there. And, people life gets busy. People don't always take that moment to reflect and enjoy what they've got at that moment. So we really want to try and promote that, not only through the brand, but through the charitable giving. And also with Habitat for Humanity, we thought it was just very much in alignment with our philosophy. So that was one of the big reasons why we chose them as the recipient.
Yeah, very well said. And it's a great cause. I'm really excited to partake in it myself.
We're excited to have you on board. So like I said, I think there's going to be great things that are going to happen during the year. It's going to be a lot of work, I think, from Zenea's standpoint to really help get things rolling and get the energy at the level where the momentum is going. But I've been so enthused by the feedback and the enthusiasm of almost every single person I've asked. And almost everyone I've asked has said, very definitively, yes, I'm going to participate. I'm going to help out very, very quickly without much hesitation. So it's been really amazing at this early stage to see that. So I'm excited to launch strong, and I think we're going to get a lot of folks involved, and hopefully we'll show Canada, what the watch community is made of, because I know there's a lot of really fantastic people out there, from other collectors I've talked to, other reviewers, just people in the community. and showing what we can do, and hopefully draw on some other people to support the charity. And not only that, but maybe appreciate watches a little more as well, and get them enthused, and maybe create some new collectors or new enthusiasts as well during the process, which is always fun. So.
Yeah, and for me personally, I find what really makes me enjoy this hobby so much is that a lot of the watches I enjoy tell a story, right?
Absolutely.
So this watch is going to tell a fantastic story, and
this story is going to be amazing. Along with the watch, we're sending a journal that's accompanying the watch. So I'm going to ask every person who has the watch for a couple of days to a week to fill in the journal a little bit about their experiences, the message they want to share. I'm also sending a couple of Canadian flags, and I'm going to get people to actually autograph the Canadian flag. And by the end of the year, we're going to have a flag with all the autographs of all the people who've interacted with the watch, as well as all the social media posts and the journal. And we're going to auction that along with some other fun items as well at the end of the year to kind of give a bit of a boost to the campaign right at the very end. So somebody's going to be able to enjoy the watch, and I've bought a nice Pelican case for it to get shipped in, so hopefully it's going to protect it. Nice. I'm a little nervous about shipping the watch, to about 50 different people during the course of the year, because it's going to have a lot of kilometers on it. But I think with the case and whatnot, and as long as somebody doesn't drop it off a cliff or into the ocean or something like that, which is always possible, I think the watch should last throughout the year, and the Pelican case I think will help quite a bit. I do want to mention as well. We do have a contributor who's also contributing early on to the campaign, and that's another Canadian brand, Strapsco, out of Montreal. And they are providing an assortment of all of the straps, and they're all quick release straps. So people can, the Ula Diver normally has a very nice bracelet, but to encourage people just to be able to grab the watch and put it on immediately without having to worry about sizing and things like that, we're basically sending a bunch of quick release straps and regular straps with the buckles and the holes. But we're sending in a whole assortment of straps that come with the watch, courtesy of Strapsco. And I know they'll be sending out some of the straps to participants as well as a thank you for participating in the program. And they're going to have the watch in their hands probably for a few days as well, in probably sometime this summer. I haven't picked an exact date yet, but I know they're excited to also participate in the program. So. Yeah,
Strapsco is a great brand. In fact, the last video I dropped, the last two videos, was actually reviewing some straps from them. They kindly sent some into the channel. So
yeah, they're a good group. They've been really fun to deal with, and very, very supportive, and they've been helpful giving us some introductions to other folks as well, like people I didn't know as well. So they've been great so far.
Awesome. Let's just jump into the chat quickly and catch up. Kevin mentions he's actually from Regina, Saskatchewan. And sorry, I keep saying he's out on the West Coast, and that's just in my mind you are, because Saskatchewan's pretty far west from where I am. But
yeah, it's funny how my corporate jobs that I've had in the past, I've had the opportunity to travel all over Canada.
Yeah.
And, I grew up in Vancouver, so that's not quite Vancouver Island, but it's about as far west as you can get. So for me, whenever we would reference back east, back east technically means more like Atlantic Canada. Sure. So when I say back east, to me, back east used to be Ontario, Saskatchewan, almost everything. So, and when I started traveling through Canada, I was corrected on that pretty quickly. So, yeah, it's all relative, right? So,
yeah, exactly. It's all relative. Aaron Clark joined us. Thanks, man. He seems excited about the campaign and to support the campaign. So,
yeah,
thanks
for everyone who's watching. I mean, a donation is very, very helpful. What would be even more helpful over time too is, anything that people are able to donate is a huge help. But really just sharing the message with their own networks and asking people to give us a follow at Zenea Time Traveler on Instagram, share the message and try and drum up some other donations from other people or support and however they can do it. It all helps. So really sharing the word out enthusiastically with your own networks and people and letting them know about this great campaign. It's very, very helpful for us to get some momentum as we get going, especially in the early days, the first few months.
Yeah. And again, guys, for those of you who are watching, are going to play this back later, link is in the description for the donation page as well as the Traveling Timepiece Instagram.
Awesome.
Kevin mentions he would actually love to be involved if you can get the traveling watch to Saskatchewan. I think he'd be happy to get his hands on it.
Kevin, I'm not sure if you follow me on Instagram or not with the main Zenea page or the Zenea Time Traveler. If you send a message through that account, I can talk with you. And the watch is scheduled for one other person in Saskatchewan already, but would be happy to add you to that list if you want to participate. So it is filling up pretty quick, so I do recommend anybody who's kind of interested to express your interest fairly soon. Because like I say, we've got about 25 people lined up already. Still looking for some folks up north in Yukon and Northwest Territories. Obviously, there's not as many people to draw on there, not as many watch collectors, but I'm sure we'll fill it up pretty quick. So just send me a message, Kevin. I'd be happy to chat with you about it.
There is interest in the chat. If you're looking for Northern Ontario, it seems like my brother from Ride Paddle Repeat channel, he can take it backcountry canoe tripping.
Maybe you could film all the mosquitoes attacking the watch, right?
I mean, that's pretty Canadian. And you'd be surprised
Canadian.
how many watches he's taken of mine. He's taken some of my watches backcountry canoeing and some really nice pics, actually.
No, I'm open to it. I know Bob with Time to Go 1978. He's gonna when he gets the watch, his plan was he was gonna wear it kayaking and take some kayaking pictures with it. So I'm sure we're gonna get lots of very exciting pictures and unusual places and doing very nature-driven kind of adventures and things like that. And I'm trying to work on a few other ones too. I know someone fairly well. She used to be a very avid skydiver. She stopped doing it now, but she has lots of skydiving contacts. So I'm going to see if somebody can strap it on and maybe do a 10,000-foot jump with the watch. I think that'll be kind of fun to watch, right? So I'm not going to go skydiving myself, but I think it'll be cool to see the watch do it. So we'll see.
Yeah, that'd be exciting.
Yeah, it would be. It would be.
Yeah. Murrow joined, thanks, and he said a great cause. So
thank you.
Thank
you so much. So yeah, Murrow's a good guy. I've had the pleasure of meeting him in person, and he's been a very good supporter of the brand as well. So he owns a number of Zenea timepieces as well. So.
Yeah. Almighty Ohm has joined. Thanks.
I like this green name. That's a cool name.
Yeah. Tobias also joined. Thanks for making the time. Yeah, we've talked and we've chatted in the past. So
excellent.
Thanks for making time on your Friday evening.
Yeah, Friday evenings can be tough, right? So.
Yeah.
We are watch nerds. I'm absolutely a watch nerd, so I count myself in that category, or watch geek, whatever term you want to use. So. Yeah, like I say, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Almighty Ohm, what are the details that you're wanting to know?
Maybe about the when the watch is going to come around. I think in a further message mentioning that he's from Niagara. Actually, Niagara is like my hometown, and I had some thoughts. Like he's taking my ideas because I was thinking, I'd love to hit up the Bruce Trail or the Falls or the Escarpment.
The watch is actually launching on July 1st from Niagara Falls. RJ Tamovic, which you may know from Instagram, he's got a pretty big following. He's going to be the first official holder of the watch. So he's going to take a few pictures in Niagara Falls and some other places and before it heads off to its next destination. The watch is going to get a lot of kilometers on it throughout the course of the year. So I'm fully anticipating that it will probably come back to certain locations a number of times during the year, especially if it's a larger place, right? So we'll probably be back in Toronto a few times, probably back in Niagara Falls once or twice, may go to Hamilton, may go to London, etc., Vancouver, the bigger cities. It is going to some very small communities as well. There's one community by the name of Lions Bay in Northern Ontario. It's about 500 people. It's actually heading up there as well. So this watch is going to be in large cities to very, very small communities to probably stark wilderness as well, I would imagine, with a few people taking it on trips and whatnot. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. And Dominic Chung joined.
Dominic is an amazing guy. And I actually met him, believe it or not. I was selling a mountain bike and sold him the mountain bike, and he was doing a bit of research, making sure the guy who's buying the mountain bike from was a decent guy and wasn't going to steal money or something. I don't know why. Anyways, he just did a bit of research and he saw that I had Zenea and a watch company. So we started chatting about watches, and he wanted to pick up a Zenea Snowcap Classic White for himself. So he's been enjoying that a lot over the last couple of months. I think he's almost had it now. So, and he does these amazing bike trips and all over the Niagara Escarpment, and he's like a bird watcher and does these amazing photos and all sorts of fun stuff. So
Yeah,
thank you.
my brother and I are really avid mountain bikers as well. And growing up in Niagara, we've done a fair number of trails. So it'd be interesting if he's probably done a lot of what we've done in the past. So it'd be
Yeah,
kind
so
of cool to check out.
he's scheduled to also, he's agreed to participate, so he'll have the watch at some point. So it will probably go on one of his mountain bike adventures. And I'm not sure what he'll do. He'll do something creative, I'm sure. But looking forward to having him have the watch as well and be a part of that campaign. So
Yeah, you're saying winery and brew shots.
I'm down for the brew shots. So winery's okay too, but brews is more my style than the wine. But I enjoy both.
Well, in my hometown of Beamsville, they have now a micro brewery called Bench Brewery.
Okay.
And they do a lot of different beers. A lot of them are more like IPAs and sour and stuff like that. But there's also
I've actually had a couple of their beers before. I remember Bench Brewing Company. So yeah, Ontario.
Well, I like it because they tend to name their brews after local landmarks too. So like it would be like Vineland Estates or like Harbor Estates or Jordan Harbor and stuff like that. So you get the local landmarks in the name. And there's also like, a dozen wineries in that area as well.
Yeah, there's lots down there for sure. It's such a beautiful area as well. So my neighbor is actually moving to Niagara-on-the-Lake in about another month. He sold his house, and him and his wife are moving down there and kind of going into quasi-retirement, I guess, living down there. So they're excited.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be my retirement destination, hopefully, too. We'll see.
Nice.
Yeah. Darren saying watches and mountain bikes. Yeah, I know we're both passionate about that. That's awesome.
I love mountain biking, and I do more road cycling now to try and stay in shape. I got back into it this year, and but growing up in Vancouver, I didn't realize it's kind of the golden age of mountain biking until, of course, later, right? But really got into it around 1990, 1991. So I still have my original bike, which was a Rocky Mountain Cirrus, and considered a pretty good bike back in that day, and it's still a desirable bike. And
Rocky Mountain makes good stuff.
Yeah, I just took it down off the rack actually because it was good. Looking at upgrading one of the parts, and it's just been so much fun. And it was such an amazing community to be a part of, and it was just something that we did with my friends every weekend. We get on our bikes, and we all lived somewhat close, like a few kilometers away, and we'd all meet, and we just ride from our houses up to wherever we were mountain biking. So it was long, kind of epic day rides that would be 5 to 8 hours of riding. And,
wow, that's intense.
Mostly on the road, but then we get to our destination, we'd ride for like 2 or 3 hours on the trails. And this is back, now you go and there's a lot of downhill parks, right? So you grab your bike and it's just like wearing a set of skis. You're hanging on the back of the chair and you go up, and then you do the fun part, which is going down. Back in those days, the only way you could get up was to ride up. So riding up was 3/4 of the time or 90% of the time, and then you turn around and you go downhill for the last 10 or 15 minutes or whatever, which was always fun. But it was a different type of riding back then, more cross country. But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself tremendously, and so many good memories.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think mountain biking's kind of taken off with the whole lockdown situation, but it's also made it extremely difficult to actually purchase a new mountain bike.
It's extremely challenging right now, and actually I feel bad for a lot of families or people just wanting to buy a bike for their children or just for themselves, because there's still a used market, but things are a little expensive, and the bikes which are mostly at the price point or more accessible for what most people want, like the $500 to $800 bikes for a new bike, you can't find them anywhere. I mean, they're all sold out, and it's been that same way for 9-10 months, right? And it doesn't sound like it's going to be that much better this year either. It's just so popular, and it's amazing though when you look out on the street and you see so many people walking around and bikes and people going to parks. And I have this amazing park very, very close to my house, and you used to be able to go, when I had a dog, you could take them on the weekend, and there'd be a few people walking around, but it would be generally empty. Every weekend now, that park is packed. There are hundreds of cars parked along the street, and it's not shoulder to shoulder, but there's so many people walking on the trails and the pathways, and it's just people have started doing different things as a result of the pandemic. So
it's true. Yeah, even like when I go back to visit my parents in Niagara, all of the trailheads for the Bruce Trail are completely packed. Like everyone's parked and hiking on the trail, so that's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, it's good to see, but it makes it a bit of a challenge too, because then you have to work a little harder to find the off-road places, right? So, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's good that people are getting outside and I think doing something healthy and spending time with their families and people they know and friends, and it's really helped people, I believe, to rekindle some of the things that are a very healthy thing for people's lives, you know, which is connection with others. It's such a core part of having a good life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see we got some more comments here, so I just want to catch up.
Sure.
Frozen Gamers joined us. Good
Hello.
to see you. He joined some of the other streams I'm a part of.
Oh,
so
excellent. Excellent.
yeah, Bench Brewery is awesome. Agreed. Let's see. Currently enjoying OAS Oats. I'm not sure what's that.
No, not sure. I should probably know it. I'm just trying to.
Well, sorry to put you on the spot there.
That's okay. Sorry.
Yeah, a lot of love for Bench. That's good.
I'm gonna have to go buy some tomorrow. Restock myself.
Yeah, Aaron mentioned Canadian craft beer is right up his alley. That's awesome to hear.
I love Canada has such an amazing microbrew community and so many places now. Like I remember years ago, I always enjoyed good beers, but you know, microbrews in the early '90s were kind of a oddity. They were a bit of a rare thing, and you wouldn't even find them at like bars or pubs very much. And but now they're just prolific, and there's so many fantastic beers and so many fantastic breweries out there. So I love it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Frozen Gamers asking this is a tough one to answer. What's the best budget watch? Do you want to take a stab at that one, Jason?
I'll take a stab at it. I mean, when people ask me about what watch is good or right for me, sometimes it's the budget watch, other times it's not. You know, budget watch can be defined very differently for lots of people. I'll speak in a fairly broad sense. You know, micro brands like Zenea, you know, we're a little expensive compared to most micro brand brands because of the Swiss connection and the materials and the finishing that we use on the actual products. But when you look at budget watches, and I'll make the assumption here that the budget watch, you're looking somewhere between $200 to maybe $400. You can always get less expensive watches. I mean, you can get ones for $50 or $60 sometimes for a Casio, which is I think a very good brand. But for me, some of my favorite budget pieces in that kind of $200 to $400 range, I like Seiko. I think Seiko makes a lot of very cool pieces, a lot of fun pieces. There's so many different colorways, there's so many models. It is really a tremendous amount of different choices there are options. If you wanted to go a little more upscale or a bit more dollars, you know, you can look into some really cool other brands like heritage brands like Hamilton is kind of a fun brand. Tissot makes some nice pieces. Yeah. You know, Zenea makes some nice pieces too. The challenge with a new brand, though, of course, is you don't have the history, right? You don't have the heritage of 80 years or 100 years of history, which is also one of the appealing things with some watch brands as well. So, but I would say overall, I think Seiko is probably one of the better brands in terms of how fun it is and how many choices that you have. My only complaint, I would say, with Seiko is I find the finishing on the bracelet sometimes to be not up to speed with the rest of the watch. So I do own a few Seikos myself. I've actually changed out the bracelet on almost all of them because the bracelets kind of drive me a bit crazy. But that's me personally. So I don't know, Torrin, what do you think? Not on my end, what do you think from an answer for yourself standpoint?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what you mentioned. I mean, I do think Seiko is a good choice, but I agree with you. So a lot of people complain about bracelets, or if it's a diver, about like bezel alignment, like those type of QC issues. So I would actually say you could also piggyback and maybe look at Orient. Like
that's
they're jointly made, like by
another great entry level brand or budget brand, I would say as well, with lots of choice.
Yeah. Well, Orient actually has a bit of like a range. Like there's you can get like their basic range, their popular divers like the Ray or the Mako, but then you can go up to like their Orient Star range, or like their more expensive divers, like their saturation divers and stuff.
Okay.
And also, if not Orient, then I really like Citizen as well, in terms
Citizen's
of like if you want a great budget.
Yeah, good brand, very well respected, good movements as well. So they're another great. A bit more
Yeah.
conservative with some of their styles, I find, but I like them. They're also good.
Yeah. Eric's charming, and he says he likes Dan Henry. They make good, like, I guess homage, or like get a lot of inspiration from vintage watches. I find.
I believe, yeah, that's from my. I don't know a lot about them, but I've seen them on the forums and people speak about them, especially U.S. buyers. They're very popular in the U.S. it seems, and they have a lot of vintage inspired or vintage homages, I guess you could say. So.
Yeah, I personally owned. I think it was the 1964. It was like a vintage inspired racing chronograph, and it was pretty cool.
Racing chronographs are fun. So everybody's been asking me when Zenea is going to make a chronograph actually. So. Soon, but not right away. Our next line is probably going to be a dress watch with it's a bit more meaty and a bit more beefy though than a typical dress watch. So it's probably going to be about 80% dress watch with maybe 20% field watch kind of mixed in. It's going to be a little more robust than the typical dress watch, but it's still going to look really nice. Hopefully.
Yeah, I was going to transition and talk about like your brand. And I didn't know how much you could divulge about kind of what's coming down the pike. What's your next watch? Because so far you have the Ula Diver, but you're kind of forecasting a couple of different watches, and I guess.
Correct. Yeah, and I'd say that the next one that's in the pipes is the dress watch. I don't have a model name for it yet. I've got a few ideas, but I haven't landed quite on one yet. The 3-dimensional artist renderings are almost complete. The artist is putting the fine touches on them this weekend and probably at the beginning of next week. And I was actually starting to enter into active discussions as well with the factory partner to produce the prototypes first. And so it is actually moving along pretty quickly. So don't want to give a timeline to it yet, but the prototypes will be happening pretty soon. We've got some really interesting colorways and a lot more options than we had with the Ula Diver in terms of different colorways and materials. We've got some very interesting, pretty exotic dial materials as well on a couple of the models. So I won't go into too much detail. When I see you in person, Torin, I'll show you the renderings, but anyone I'm showing them to, I'm not really passing them around yet. I'm just showing them in person. And feedback has been quite good. I know Bob has seen the renderings and he quite liked it. So on the video that I recently did with him, I kind of joked around. I said, under the threat of death, and, you can't divulge anything, right? It's really not that serious, but I am trying to be very selective with, not necessarily sharing all the info yet. And once the prototypes come out, that's when I'll be sharing that on a more broader basis and people will start to see what's coming. So I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm wondering too, maybe if I often hear this question, and I've even thought about it myself, but like, what's some of the best advice you can give someone who wants to go into considering developing their own micro brand?
I wouldn't. It's I could say tongue in cheek and say go another direction, but I mean I love it. I think it's fantastic. It is a huge undertaking though. Even if you choose not to go the Swiss manufacturer route, it's still very, very expensive. There's so many expenses that come into play when you start doing your research. There's tooling costs, manufacturing costs, there's prototyping, there's minimum order quantities and all sorts of things that come up in terms of cost. The one thing I did when I put together is I probably spent more effort and more money, I would say, on the actual development of the watch and the production piece of it. And I did some from a marketing standpoint, but less. If I could change one thing, I would probably shift a little more effort towards the marketing end to help pre-promote it a bit more. It is a big undertaking though. It takes a lot of time. I think gone are the days where you can throw up a Kickstarter campaign and you're going to get a ton of people jumping in just because it's a novel Kickstarter watch. I mean, there's 2-3 watches a day it seems that launch on Kickstarter now, so very, very difficult to differentiate yourself. So
yeah, I was actually going to ask you to would you advise going that route, like the Kickstarter route? Because it all depends. I've actually purchased a couple of watches from Kickstarter, and you're rolling the dice a little bit, especially during the pandemic.
I mean, it's different companies come on Kickstarter, and I've heard fantastic Kickstarter outcomes, and I've heard horror stories as well. So you are taking a little bit of a risk. That was one of the reasons when I launched into launching Zenea, I chose not to go down Kickstarter. And I was fortunate enough to have some of the funds. It's all self-funded, the brand by myself at this point. And I was able to do that. But I mean, the challenge is it locks up lots of your capital over time, right? I'm glad I did it that way. I may look at Kickstarter in the future, possibly, or not, depends. Kickstarter, even to launch a Kickstarter campaign, though, to do it properly, is still very expensive because you're going to be paying for the design costs, you're going to be paying for the prototypes, you're going to be paying probably for photography work, for pre-marketing, advertising, a lot of hours putting it in. And there's still no guarantee that your Kickstarter campaign is going to be successful or is going to be funded. So even to launch a Kickstarter campaign, I mean, you're probably looking at, into the healthy 5 figures, really to get it up and running. That'd be my estimation. And again, maybe you could do a little less, but you're up against some pretty noisy competitors, I guess. And it's hard to get your name out there. You can do lots of things within the watch community, but you need to get people to buy into your brand. And sometimes you can do something a little innovative or unique, and people will get it for that reason. But those campaigns are few and far between. Do your research, take your time. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon to build a new brand and get out there.
Sure.
You do the right things. I think it will pay off over time, but it takes a long time. And that's been my biggest learning, is everything takes a lot of time. And even when I first launched, I built the website, I did pre-marketing, and lots of people were like, yeah, I'm really interested in the watch. And, I probably had, it was a small number, but maybe 40 people that expressed interest. And when I launched, I said, hey, everything's out. And none of those 40 even responded back to me. So I was like, God, this is going to be a lot of work. So, and that's okay. That's okay. But it just takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So be prepared to run the marathon if you're going to launch a brand. So,
yeah, that's good advice. And something I personally wondered with your brand too is, like, how much consideration did you go behind going with a Swiss manufacturer and having like that Swiss made on the dial, as opposed to, say, like getting your manufacturing done in the Orient or Far East, like a lot of other micro brands?
The long-term vision with the brand was always to have a Swiss-made brand. And initially, when I was first starting to develop Zenea, I did look at going for the manufacturing to be done not in Switzerland, but it was a little more amenable in terms of budget and costing and whatnot. And I actually had a set of prototypes made from a factory in China originally. And the watches, I got them, and they were okay, but they weren't anywhere near the level that I really had in terms of an end vision for the brand and what I wanted to produce. And I just wasn't happy with it overall. And when I was dialoguing back and forth with my contacts there, I wasn't really too pleased with, the answers I was getting back, and it wasn't instilling a lot of confidence. And even though I had invested the money into the initial prototypes and setting things up in that regards, I said, maybe it's a better business decision for me to shift my focus to my Swiss contacts that I had built up and start that process from a Swiss perspective. And I had to think about it for about a week and a half, and that's in the end what I decided to do. So I think it was the right decision for the business and for the brand. It was more expensive to go that route, but the end product and the brand that I'm standing behind now, I think, is more in alignment with my personal taste and what I wanted to create for people from a client experience and a customer experience with the watches. So, yeah, and you could do both. I said there's a lot of variation between factories and partners who you work with in Asia. So, take your time. A lot of people make promises very quickly. Very few actually deliver on it. So don't get yourself into a situation that you've painted yourself into a corner. Because I've talked with a number of other brand owners who've gone down that route, and they've invested everything they had, and then they weren't happy with what was happening. So it's a bit heartbreaking because it can crush your business before you even get going. So
yeah, well, I appreciate you walking me through your thought process and your experience, because speaking to some other brand owners as well, I get the same impression. Like,
it's very much there. I mean, I'm very when I chat with people, I'm very transparent and very open about my experience and what's been great about it, and maybe some of the challenges as well. So I do like to share those things, and it's a long process though to do it correctly and to put something out that you're proud of. For me personally, I'm proud of and I can stand behind, and again creates that experience. And that's where the whole name Zenea comes from, right? I think we talked about this before. I started with the end vision about what I wanted to create, the type of watch I wanted to create, the type of experience I wanted to create, and work backwards to put all the foundations in place to make it happen. So going backwards in the alphabet, Z to A, you kind of fill in the blanks, Zenea, right? So that's where the name Zenea comes from. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you've put a lot of thought into it, and it will stand the test of time. I feel like if you can stand behind your product, and like you said, you're transparent about it, and you put out a quality timepiece, I think you do, get people backing you when they get exposed to the brand and they get to experience it in person.
yeah, it does help. Certainly, I think the watch being in hand makes a big difference. And it's not just my opinion, but I know when I've spoken with many other clients or customers or people when they've handled the watch for the first time, a very common statement that I get back is, the photos look good, but in person, this watch is much, much better. Like it's a different experience, and people can see the finer elements, I guess, from the quality and the construction. So I'd say it's a pretty common statement that I get back. So which makes me happy, because I know, I want people to enjoy the watch. I want them to enjoy the ownership of it, or even if they're just, having a chance to handle the watch, but they're not owning one themselves, but they enjoy it and they love it, right? That's part of the wonderful thing about owning a brand, right? I've been able to connect with people all over the world, and I hear stories, and Zenea timepiece is part of, their special day. They buy it for their spouse because it's their work anniversary, or somebody's turning 50 years old, or they're turning 40, like a milestone birthday, some sort of special event. And the Zenea timepiece has now become part of that special event that marks that moment for them. So to be a small part of that is an amazing feeling, to know that I've been a part of that. So I love it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. You get to connect with people that way.
It is, and all over the world as well. I mean, we've actually sold a lot of watches in the UK as well, so which has been interesting.
Oh, that's nice.
The folks over there as well. So, and I remember this one individual. He's not on social media or anything like that, but he purchased the watch, and he was the most interesting guy when I connected with him. But when it went through our processor, because of where he was located, and he was purchasing through a VPN, it got flagged as potential fraud. So I said, well, sometimes it's an error, right? So I said, I'll reach out to him and see what he says. And anyways, he got back to me, and he was so detailed in his email. And he had a funny email that had a reference to this show in the 1970s called the Rockford Files. And if you're a Rockford Files fan, you would have gotten the reference. And I asked him about it, and he wrote me this like super, super long email about how he was such a fan of the Rockford Files and all these details. And I was thinking to myself, if this guy's a scammer, he's the most elaborate scammer in the face of the planet. And he wasn't. He just wanted to buy the watch because he saw it in a magazine that had been profiled in, and he loved it. And I wound up sending him the watch, and he sent me a few pictures of it, and he's enjoying it now, and that's in Northern Ireland. So it's kind of fun to know my watch is over there right now, and and all these different places where people have purchased it, and where the watch is. So it's fun.
Yeah, that's a cool story.
Yeah, I left out lots of details to try and keep it short, but he was a very interesting guy. I really enjoyed chatting with him. So we had a lot of back after we stopped talking about the watch. We were just chatting about all sorts of other stuff. So nice gentleman.
All right, I'm just going to jump back into the chat here.
Sure.
Pseudoscientist is saying hit the thumbs up if you can. Yeah, I agree, man. Support the channel, support Zenea. It's a great campaign.
You know what? The thumbs up and comments actually for YouTubers really, really help. And I know all YouTubers and reviewers always talk about, give it a thumbs up and give it a comment. I encourage everybody to do that, not just for this video, but go into Everyday Watch Guys' other videos. And if you haven't, give a few a thumbs up or leave some comments, because it helps the algorithm a lot, and it really
it does help
your
with
content
YouTube
right up to the front. So it makes a big difference and keeps things very fresh. So I do that myself personally, and it's a great thing to do. So it's a great comment.
Yeah, I think following up, he mentioned he likes Dan Henry style watches as well. And yeah, I can attest, they do, like, their designs are really nice. You do get that, I guess.
It's that vintage vibe.
Yeah.
Through. Most people I know who speak about this brand talk about the vintage element, and it appeals to them, right? So
yeah, and I think the history behind it too. I think Dan Henry was like an avid or pretty famous watch collector, and it kind of sparked, like those were his kind of watches that he enjoyed collecting. So they're kind of reimagining those watches, but in an affordable way.
Yeah,
So
and there's a big market for that as well. And,
of course, yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. On my own, wearing my Citizen 20-year-old chrono with Eco Drive. You know, those Eco Drives are like tried and true. I've owned a lot of Eco Drives. I cut my teeth on the dive watches from Citizen, like the Pro Master series.
Yeah.
And yeah, phenomenal beater watches. You don't have to worry about it. They're great movements.
Yeah, I've actually got one Eco Drive as well. I actually picked it up from a thrift store, and the bracelet on it was broken. So I brought it home and I fixed it up, and I wore it. It's a bit big for me though, so I don't wear it too much. It's a chronograph, but I forget what size it is. I think it's probably about 44 or so, or 43, which is a little big for my wrist personally, so I don't wear it too much. But it's a good watch. It's a good watch. So
yeah. Eric Miller had some comments for you. He said the Ula Diver for the yellow dial is a great looking watch. Yeah, that really pops, especially in different lighting conditions. It's really cool.
Thank you so much. That's actually been a really fun watch, and it's probably one of the watches that it's kind of in the middle in terms of how many sell, but from a comment standpoint, the yellow dial almost always gets the most comments because I think it is very distinctive and it's a little unique. And I quite like the yellow and the way the hue on the yellow shifts a little bit depending on whether you're in bright sunlight or you're more in the evening or you're indoor light. The yellow becomes a bit more kind of gold or a bit deeper in its color, and when you're in bright sunlight, it kind of pops a little more. So it's quite an enjoyable watch, and a lot of comments on it for sure. So
yeah, it kind of reminds me of like a Doxa sub, like
very similar, very similar. I don't own any Doxas, but I've always liked them. They got that super cool kind of cushion case and the bright yellow one. It's like just screams like early 70s, right? And they're very funky. I really like them.
Yeah. Eric was asking, would you ever think of doing a sandwich dial?
I might. I'm not a giant fan of sandwich dials. I know they're super popular. I'm more of I really enjoy applied indices more than sandwich dials. I think when you have a sandwich dial though, most of the time they're pretty straightforward. Like it's usually like a field watch or something, and they do a simple cutout. If I was ever to do a sandwich dial, I think I would probably approach it in a little bit of a different way and maybe try and do something a bit more creative in terms of the sandwich, like as opposed to 2 layers, maybe I would do 2 or 3 layers and almost make a multifaceted or multi-layered sandwich and a pattern somehow, not just the indices where the indices would be, but maybe some of the other design elements as well. So I'm not a giant sandwich dial guy, but I would consider it if I would, but I'd have to kind of make it my own, I guess, with the design process with it. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for your insight on that.
Okay. I know they're very popular. So.
Yeah. Aaron mentions that the Meteorite dial was a very smart move, and he absolutely loves his Ula Diver with the Meteorite dial.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, like I say, it's been a very, very popular watch, and the story behind it is so fun, and it's been a very popular seller for sure. So lots of people agree with you, Aaron. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying Swiss-made Canadian company of Meteor Dial, instantly hooked. Yeah.
There you go.
Good to hear.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the support. So don't forget to give us a follow too at the Zenea Time Traveler as well. So that's going to be a big piece. Sorry to switch gears. I just wanted to mention it again. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think Young Exley mentioned there's a lot of magic. I think maybe is it the yellow dial? The watch plays off the light in the case, the indices in hands, and the only way to experience is to have it in hand.
Yeah, having the watches in hand, like I said, that's one of the goals. Obviously, of the Zenea brand is I want to get them out and have people wearing them, but also experiencing it as well. With the launching at the start of the pandemic has made that certainly add another layer of complexity or challenge to launch a new brand, particularly with the watches, because something like the Zenea Ula Diver, when you hold it in hand, the experience is very different from just seeing it in a photograph or hearing somebody else speak to it or talk about it. So I'm really looking forward to getting the opportunity to do more face-to-face with people. I know I've got a couple of kind of standing invites to various Red Bar events that are going on, and I do want to go down there and just join in with the group and have a chat talk about watches and share the experience of the Zenea brand with others as well. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to do that. So.
Mm-hmm. And quickly, Aaron was asking about if you can give more detail on the Meteor Dial, which I believe you did near the start of our live stream. So you can actually go back and play it back if you want.
Yeah,
but I don't know if you want to reiterate any of that information.
Yeah, the Meteor Dial is I mean, it's a very interesting material to work with. It's from the Lusta meteorite, which fell in northern Sweden about 1 million years ago. I was telling the folks earlier that it's about 4.5 billion years old, the actual meteorite material itself. So it's older than the Earth. When they make the dial, it's actually quite interesting how they do it, because the meteorite material itself is a little more brittle or fragile than typical dial material. So what they typically do is they take a thin slice and then they underlay it usually with a copper plate or a brass plate to give it a bit more rigidity, so that when they work on it and do the holes for the applied indices and logos and whatnot, they're able to work with the material without the risk of damaging the meteorite material. So it's a little more extensive, certainly, to work with it, but when it's done correctly, and I think it's paired with the right colors and materials to really enhance the meteorite, not just enhance the actual meteorite itself, but I guess align well from a design standpoint, is just very magical what can happen. And I love that watch. I think it's so much fun. And little elements that make it kind of unique, like the heat blued hands. The Ula Diver with the meteorite's the only one that has the heat blued hands. So those were a little extra to create, but I think they had a nice touch to the meteorite, and kind of offsets the silver grayness of the meteorite material itself and plays well with the blue bezel. So I'm very pleased with the way it turned out.
Yeah, I love that you went with the heat blued hands. It helps with the legibility as well.
For sure. The heat blued hands are actually kind of funny too, because depending on how the light reflects off of them, sometimes they can actually look black. Other times they have that blue color as well. So they're very nice though.
That's awesome. Well, we approached the top of the hour. So I apologize if I didn't get to everyone in the chat. Maybe we can wrap this up soon. But before we do, do you have anything else you want to plug, or anything else you want to remind people?
I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to come on and chat. It's always, I really enjoy these. There's always so much fun to talk to members of the community and answer questions. And like I said, we're very, very excited about the Zenea Time Traveler and that campaign and the fundraiser. So as you watch this, do go and give us a follow on our Instagram handle at Zenea Time Traveler. And also our main Instagram page, which is at Zenea Watches. And I can always be reached directly through messaging there if you wanted to chat or find out more. Anything at all in terms of questions about the brand, about the watches, I'm usually very accessible, and I'm pretty good at getting back to people fairly quickly. So, that's one of the wonderful things about micro brands or new brands. Usually the owners are a lot more accessible, and most of the owners are pretty good. I've heard a couple of stories, maybe not as nice, but I'm a very approachable guy. So if you have any questions, just feel free to give me a call. I'm always happy to connect with people. So
yeah, that's great, and I do really appreciate you reaching out and being part of this live stream. And for sure, it's always great to connect with the owner and see the story behind the brand. And I can really say, having personally experienced the Ula Diver and getting to know you a little bit more, I'm really excited for the future of Zenea. And I do think that people will support it because it's such a great brand. And you're very transparent. And I really love your philosophy around the watch and getting the micro brand started. So thanks again for joining me on the live stream.
My pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to put it together. And like I say, always a pleasurable individual to talk to. And appreciate your support and kind words as well. They're always appreciated. So thank you so much. Have a great Friday, everybody.
You too. And thanks everyone for the chat, for joining. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next stream.
Okay. Sounds good.
See ya.
Have a good night. Bye, everyone.